actually more recent. This is about concern for community. So oftentimes what happens is, especially when you have self-help groups, or in any of your countries, are there groups called VSLAs, Village Savings and Loan Associations? Every context there are different kind of groups. Of course, there are some places they are called savings groups. In Bangladesh, I think CARE is doing a lot of savings groups, community-based savings groups. So, what happens is, when they are part of these informal and eventually formal groups, they become more effective. They are able to, gain from this membership. Economic gains, social gains, political gains, whatever. Most importantly, economic gains. So when they gain economically, the people who are not members of these cooperatives, they feel that, oh, what is this? In my village, this self-help group is functioning very well. Only members are benefiting, but I have nothing that I gain from that. So what they do is, at the end of each year, they say, okay, out of the profit, maybe we allocate 10% for doing something for the community, which may be like providing a sports kit to the school, the primary school in the village, or maybe helping construct a toilet for the school. Anything, something small, but that is useful for the entire community. So that only members are not benefiting, but the non-members also could benefit. So these cooperative principles, okay, which are evolved by the International Cooperative Alliance, okay, so ICA, over a period of 150, 160 years, are applicable to, in my opinion, all membership-based organizations that are involved in livelihood promotion. Okay? If you, by the way, do you treat a CBO involved in livelihood promotion as a business enterprise? Would you treat it as a business enterprise? Or you would treat it as a charitable organization? What do we understand by CBO, by the way? A community-based organization, is it a charitable organization, or is it a business entity, or is it what is it?
Charitable.
Huh?
Charitable.
Charitable? What is it? Huh? It's a business entity. Why do you think it's a charitable entity?
Actually, just from my perspective, I come from Northeast India. So we have a lot of community-based organizations. They don't do any business at all, but it's all for the community welfare, like building up of roads, or construction of watershed, or any other social service. And we are yet to grasp this idea of business development into the CBOs. So it is very relevant. The training is very relevant.
That's why you are absolutely right. That's why I used this word in the context of livelihood promotion. Okay? When you talk about a community-based organization, we are talking about a number of community people or households coming together for collective benefit. That means by coming together they are able to benefit from the collective action. And oftentimes the benefit is economic. A few times it can be social, it can be cultural, it can be religious, but predominantly it's an economic benefit. I think the CBO that you are referring to is more like an NGO. Okay? A non-governmental organization. What is the purpose of a non-governmental organization?
Service to the community.
So it is for the purpose of public good. Okay? So it accesses certain grants and then does something good for the public at large. the people who are benefiting from that need not be the people who are giving that money. Okay? So they are able to act as a bridge between the donor and the community who is benefiting from that funds. Okay, so typically if you are taking money for a public good, then you are a charitable organization. Have you heard of this word, charitable organization? Yes, is that something you are familiar with?
Charitable trust.
So what does charitable mean?
Doing something
Huh?
doing something free services.
Provide services without expecting anything in return. Okay? Of course you expect the impact to happen. Okay? You are not expecting anything in return for yourself, but hopefully for whatever you are doing as a charitable activity, it has certain impact. Okay? So, except for those kind of organizations, whenever we talk about livelihood promotion, we are talking about they coming together, the community-based organization members coming together to do things that they are not able to do on their own. Individually they cannot do certain things, so for that collectivization is required. Okay? So let us say they all are farmers producing paddy. Okay? In Asia, a lot of countries paddy is produced. Okay, rice. And so they think that by coming together, maybe they can pool their produce and market it, so that they can get a better price. You talked about bargaining power. So by coming together, if each of them are producing 10 bags, so if there are 20 members and if they bring that 10 bags together, how much will that be? 200 bags. So if they sell 200 bags at one go, maybe they will get a better price than each farmer trying to sell 10 bags. Or if these 20 farmers require some fertilizer, some pesticide, or do something, technical assistance, or they need some equipment, they could collectively access that. So that's one of the reasons why they come together. And so, when we talk about community-based organizations in livelihood promotion, we are always talking about that being a business entity. Definitely not a charitable organization. So, in that kind of an entity, we are looking at these principles being present. So, if you want to go back and look at in your own country and a CBO that you are familiar with, see if these principles are present in that or not. Are they members, having joined the group voluntarily, or are they forced to join? And are there some people excluded from joining? For example, if there are farmers coming together to join, then there might be a criteria. What would be the criteria? If the farmers are forming a CBO, what might be the criteria? Huh? Must be a resident, possibly, yes. What else could be the criteria? They must have a piece of land. Okay? So if the community decides that we must have some entry norms, that someone who has a piece of land only can become a member of my CBO or our CBO, then the landless may be excluded. Okay? But at the same time, they are not excluded because they are backward caste, or they are not excluded because of some other extraneous reasons. They are excluded because the objective is specifically defined. So this open and voluntary membership is so critical when you look at any membership-based organization. Economic participation, are they putting a share? Are they putting some membership fee? Are they putting some share capital? Is there some saving? Something which, and of course, when they put share, what do they expect from that? If let us say you are joining a cooperative or you are joining a community-based organization, if you are putting a share into a cooperative or into a membership based program, what do you expect from that? Huh? Yeah, you expect some return because you are investing. Okay, and so generally in any organizational form, it is called as equity. So you are contributing a share capital or you are contributing equity to that organization. So you expect some return from that equity. So which means, so in any cooperative, the economic participation also has an expectation of some kind of a reasonable return on the contribution that they make or the equity that they contribute. And by the way, in many countries, particularly our part of the world, democratic member control, and there is also supposed to be autonomy. Okay? This is one of the biggest problem, especially, by the way, they all come from the government.
Yes.
So any government promoted CBO, autonomy and democratic control is not possible. Because there is someone, a local government official who is controlling them. Or there is some external intervention simply because there may be some money that is coming from the government in the form of share capital or in the form of a revolving fund or in the form of subsidy or in the form of whatever the name you might use. As a result, the members collectively are not allowed to make their own decisions. There is an external interference or intervention. Interference may be a negative word, but there is an external intervention saying, oh, why are you doing this, why not you do this? And why are they saying? Because they have put some money into it. It is not your own money. Okay? And this of course is in a way linked to this. And why is it important for member education? When you join a member-owned organization, why is it important that the members are trained or educated?
For decision making.
Very important. See, unless you have awareness, how can you participate in decision making? Yeah, very good, very good. Why, what is the other reason? What are the other reasons why you would want the member education?
More, so that they can have more understanding on the...
Yes, they have more understanding. So in a way, once you train them, there is also a greater ownership maybe. They understand better, so there is more ownership, more participation in decision making. And more importantly, unless there is member education, you will not be able to stop what is called elite capture. Okay, you have a CBO with 50 members, but only 5 members control the organization. Is it possible that you have 50 members in a community-based organization engaged in some marketing or some livelihood promotion or whatever? Is it possible that a few people will control or run that organization? Others are just dormant members? Huh? Not possible. If they are not aware, it's entirely possible. If you are not focused on what is called member education or member awareness, member training. Today, by the way, all over the world and more so in India, there is so much talk about financial literacy. Unless there is financial literacy, they will not be able to effectively participate in the economy, or they will not be able to effectively utilize the available banking services. So, member education is central to their participation, their ownership, and the institution being run in an effective manner through that kind of participation. And this we already talked about. Cooperation among cooperatives or any CBOs is necessary for doing things that they cannot do as individual small organizations, for collective bargaining power, and maybe even for policy advocacy, for lobbying, for doing things that will maximize the benefit. Okay? So all this And this one is so that the community is not throwing stones at them. Saying, oh, you guys are so selfish, you are benefiting among yourselves. How about us? Okay? So, let me just take back now. Any questions till now on these principles? I would request you to, yeah, please.
Sir, you have mentioned about point 3 and 4, okay, interlinked, and then democratic, democratic member control. So, if at all the government is giving something, the members not being able to control whatever their savings and all. Like in the case of SHGs and all, the government gives subsidies or
Yes.
they take kind of, it is from the government, the loan that they get. So, how does it connect to their democratic decision making?
They are not able to. They are not able to. Oftentimes there is influence of the staff. Oftentimes, let us say for example, when you go to the field, you will see that these federations of self-help group in Telangana are given what is called community investment fund. Okay, a lump sum amount is given. It is a grant to the federation, but to the member self-help groups, it's a loan. Okay, so it is called as a seed capital. It is a fund that is supposed to grow. Because that money has come, there might be some advisory saying use it for this purpose, use it that purpose. So whenever there is external resources that come to you, okay, so there is a possibility of external control, external intervention. So it is not totally autonomous. It is not totally managed. It is, as we call it as a CBO is supposed to be member owned, member managed, member controlled, member used organization. But because there is external intervention, total autonomy is not possible. Okay? And of course, oftentimes when you are operating in any country, if you are a registered entity, through legal aspects also sometimes some control comes. Like in India, for example, cooperatives, though they are membership based organization, there is always interference through the cooperative department because there are certain laws that provide them the opportunity to intervene in the functioning of the cooperatives. Okay? So these principles, the deeper you go, you will understand how all of these are applicable to the CBOs that we talk about, community-based organizations that are involved in livelihood promotion. Now I want to probe a little further on this issue. Again, I am talking in the context of livelihood promotion, not generally. I am saying, by the way, what is CBO? Community based organization. Okay. Now, a community based organization, should it always be community owned organization?
Yes.
Huh?
Should be.
No, it could be, but I am saying, should it always be a community owned organization? Not necessarily. So let us say, for example, a few people have come to that place and then set up an organization. It is based there in that community, serving the community, but it is not owned by the people who are in that village or in that habitation. But it is based there, working with them. Okay. So and we are not talking about those kind of community-based organizations which are the CBOs which behave more like NGOs or VOs, not the VOs of the federation but voluntary